Hi, I'm Larry Nespoli with the New Jersey Council of County Colleges. At New Jersey's community colleges, we believe that our students, as well as all citizens, need to be informed about the important issues facing higher education. That's why we're proud to support programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation and their partners in public television.
Funding for this edition of Caucus New Jersey has been provided by the New Jersey Education Association, New Jersey Council of County Colleges, County College of Morris, connecting learning and life, United Water, making the planet sustainable is the best job on earth, QUALCARE, Inc., a local managed care company covering 750,000 New Jersey residents, New Jersey Sharing Network, dedicated to saving lives through organ and tissue donation, and by PNC Bank. Promotional support provided by The Record, North Jersey's trusted source, and NorthJersey.com, and by POLITICKERNJ.
Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. It is my honor to introduce, for the first time here in public broadcasting, Dr. Yesenia Madas, who is Executive Director, the Center for Student Success, New Jersey Council of County Colleges. Good to have you, Doctor.
Thank you. Likewise.
Let's talk about student preparedness, college readiness, if you will. Why are so many students not ready to go to college?
Well, they're coming out of high school and they're not prepared. And some students have come to us years out of high school. We serve a large population of students from high school age, returning adults, etc. So those students often come to us and they're not prepared.
Who's the us? Who's the we?
The
Describe your
community college. So we have 19 community colleges in the state of New Jersey, and I will add there are 19 phenomenal institutions with faculty that come from everywhere, quality faculty whose primary focus is teaching and passion for students, being there with them.
How do you actually get them ready? I mean, I'm thinking about this. We've had many of your colleagues on talking about, you know, the role community colleges play, but I'm curious as to what you do in your role. Is it beforehand that you acknowledge that they're not ready, or once they come there you realize they're not, or is it both?
Well, it's both depending on when they take a placement exam. We use the AccuPlacer to assess whether they're college ready, and some of our institutions are looking at multiple measures and looking at high school transcripts, etc. However, we have a program. We just are in our second year. We're going to be starting. It's called College Readiness Now.
College Readiness Now. Go ahead.
College Readiness Now was started last year in the summer, and it was through the College Access Grant, which came from the Office of the Secretary of Higher Education. And we were very grateful for those funds. And so all of our community colleges came together in a short period of time and offered programming in either the spring at the high school, during the high school day or after, or they offered it on our campuses. And it was summer programs. Some were very intensive, 1 week boot camp, if you will, and some of them were more traditional summer bridge program, about 5 weeks. They tested over 4,000 students. 900 plus were enrolled. About 48% of those students through those programs were college ready. And the other half, you may ask, well, what happened to those students?
Yeah, what happened to those students?
Those students were then brought up so that they were only one course away from either math or English.
I can't let you get past that. Brought up, describe what actually happened with those students in terms of what was done to help them improve and in what areas.
So if they needed several semesters to get them through their coursework, to get them to be college ready, they were now much closer, meaning only one course away. So some of our students can be enrolled within the first academic year and be taking all of those courses, which are not credit-bearing courses. They're not actual college degree credits. And so what that did is save them and their families hundreds of dollars by allowing them to move up the sequence and the ladder, if you will.
But why is it that so many students are in fact not prepared for college?
Well, I think it's
because sorry for interrupting. Because it's not like they don't know, and it's not like high schools don't know that after 4 years of high school, if a young person wants to go to college, that there are certain requirements, or is that a shock to them?
Well, I think it depends on who you ask. Some people will say that the high school should be offering some of the more rigorous courses toward the end, and they talk about students being better prepared in the senior year so that when they take these exams or when they're looked at, they place better. Some students will say to you, well, I didn't know I was going to be taking an exam, or I didn't study for the exam, or I just walked in that morning and I had been up all night studying for another test, or something like that.
Which is not the best approach.
No, it's not. And we have tried really hard throughout our 19 community colleges to build partnerships with the high schools, which is what this College Readiness Now program did. There were over 60 partnerships established throughout our county colleges with their
Describe what a
high
partnership
schools.
would look like between your council and a high school, for example. What would it look like?
Well, the colleges did an RFP, a memorandum of understanding with us and with their high schools. And so they said, we have this exciting program and we want to help students because it was Challenge Access Grant money. The particulars of that grant required that we assisted students that were of high need, particularly low-income students or students in the low SES class. And so those funds were targeted to that population. And so the high schools had to sort of say, yes, we want to enter this partnership with you, the community college. And through that, that's how the programming evolved. And some of the programs, there were 3 that we're highlighting now as a best practice for next year.
Are they in certain communities?
They're throughout the 19 community colleges.
Or throughout all of the 19
All
community
of them,
colleges?
correct. All of them participated with programming. They held either the 1-week intensive, like a math boot camp to get students up to speed. Some of them, if they weren't practicing math in that last year, they knew the math, it just wasn't there. They needed to practice.
Is math one of the most common areas that students struggle in?
Yes, math and English.
Math and English are 2 of the most common.
Yes.
Interesting. How did you get into this? And why?
Oh, I'm a first-generation college student myself. And so for me, education really transformed my life.
And you wound up getting a doctorate.
I did. I went all the way. I wanted to prove to students, particularly students who look like me or come from the same background that I do, to say...
You're from the Bronx originally?
I am from the Bronx, yes.
And you decided, when did you know that you wanted to make academia your professional life?
I had, right out of high school, gotten a job as a secretary, and I was working there for several years. And I realized that the only reason I couldn't climb up and do the other jobs was because I didn't have a degree. And so that launched me into a degree. I studied psychology, and I fell in love with it. I went on to work with foster care children, and from there, I went to receive an award at my institution. And one of the deans, who was just a phenomenal mentor to me, said, there's a position open, I think you should apply. And I did, and I never looked back. I fell in love with higher education. I fell in love with helping students.
What did you fall in love with?
I fell in love with the students. I wanted to help them actualize their dreams. I spent 10 years working as a counselor at Brookdale Community College and working particularly with students in the Educational Opportunity Fund program. And it was just, for me, I would go to work, but it wasn't work. It was just a passion. It was fun. It was exciting.
And you've learned a lot about students, but also a lot about leadership.
Yes.
I'm curious about this. What would you say the most significant leadership lesson you have learned in all of your work has been so far?
Well, I'll tell you, I just recently read something that resonated with me, and it was that leaders ignite something in people. They help people find their passion. They help people, they motivate them, they lift them up. And so different than managers who light a fire under people, and I don't know if that's someone else's quote, but it's about lighting that passion and that fire within someone and helping them actualize their dreams as well, even if that means losing a good person in the process, if you will.
Well, I have a feeling that you've been lighting a fire for people and motivating people for a long time, young people in the county and community colleges. And I want to thank you, Doctor, for joining us. Dr. Yesenia Madas, all the way from the Bronx.
Thank you.
You've come a long way and keep doing what you're doing. Executive Director, Center for Student Success at New Jersey Council of County Colleges. Thank you for joining us. Stay right there.
Thank you.
We'll be right back right after this.
To see more Caucus New Jersey with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at steveadubato.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato PhD, and follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
We are honored to welcome Bill Ripken, the co-founder of the Cal Ripken Senior Foundation and analyst for MLB Network, the MLB Network. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
You come from baseball royalty.
I don't know if it's royalty.
I'd say so.
Well, if you think about,
I'm a Yankee fan, and
all
I'm
right,
saying
well,
that.
let me put it to you this way: when you're a brother of Cal Jr.,
Yeah.
and I think everybody.
By the way, did he have a
seems
pretty
to
good
know
career?
that. I think he was pretty good.
Go ahead.
And he's the Iron Man, and he's the Hall of Famer. I think what people lose sight of was the fact that there had to be someone above him to actually shape and mold that, and that happened to be Senior.
Talk about him.
And he was just this simple kind of guy that was very much nuts and bolts, very basic. If I can touch it, I can fix it type mentality. And when you think about Cal Jr., the Iron Man, he was big, he was talented. He would have played in the big leagues, but without Senior's influence on him, probably would not be the Iron Man, probably would not be in the Hall of Fame.
Why is that?
Just the way he went about his business. I mean, I was not as big, I was not as talented as my brother. I ended up getting 12 years in the big leagues, once again, probably because of the result of Senior on me. There was this very direct type of teaching that Dad was able to do. And a lot of it revolved around the basics, but don't let the basics fool you that it's not in depth, because it is. We can go deep all day long in the baseball world, but we also can take something that's very deep and bring it down into its basics form, and that's what Dad did.
Well, you come from an amazing family, but it's not just talent and hard work. You're also very committed. And through our friends at United Water, they told us about you guys and the fact that there's an initiative called Badges for Baseball that I want to talk about, which is very important because it's making a huge difference. Badges for Baseball. Talk about it.
Well, I think the cool thing about that is some of these areas that we're going in through the foundation, some of these kids probably look at the men and women wearing uniforms as the bad guys. And some of these tie-in projects that we're doing through Badges in Baseball revolve around nice facilities. So if you have a nice facility and a kid wants to go to that, and maybe instead of going down the street and turning left, where there might be something wrong down there, and he takes the chance and turns right. And
Mostly
goes
in
to
urban
this facility.
communities.
Yes.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Certainly in areas of need.
Yes.
And now we're partnering, with United Water, with law enforcement agencies from the federales all the way down, to the very entry level when you're talking about these things. Now the officers are viewed upon as the good guys.
How does it work?
And their friends. Well, let's say we bring in a group of officers and we kind of give them some ins and outs of baseball. Look, we're not trying to breed big league baseball players. That's not the goal here with the foundation and Badges for Baseball. But what we're doing is giving them a couple tidbits where they volunteer their time. We already know the officers are doing things for the right reason anyway. Now we're bringing them into the area. We give them a couple tidbits of baseball. They become friends and form this bond with the youth in that area. And I don't need to look at studies to see this is going to be a good thing. Common sense tells me you bring law enforcement and kids of need together and they can hang out, they become the mentors for these kids for a long, long time.
So, Bill, let me ask you this. What is it about baseball? I mean, we have two sons who are 10 and 12 playing baseball right now, and I'm a big fan of teamwork and the leadership and the camaraderie and the whole bit. But I also see them acting, negative towards each other, blaming each other, like weird stuff goes on, like life. I'm convinced baseball is a metaphor for life, but not everyone sees it that way. Do you believe with these kids and these officers that it is a metaphor for life?
I do, and it's kind of funny you brought that up because my dad always said, what you do in life, you do in baseball, and what you do in baseball, you do in life. And let's look at it this way. Some of these
you
kids...
can cheat in baseball, you can cheat in life.
It's true.
Yeah. I'm not going to name names, but go ahead.
No, but if you're going to play the game fairly in baseball, you usually play the game of life fairly as well. But let's look at it this way. We host camps from the foundation. United Water has been helping us out, sending us kids down there for our summer camp. So let's say we take 40 kids out of Jersey City. We take 40 kids out of Cleveland. We take 40 kids out of Detroit.
That's right.
You bring 120 kids into our facility.
And we're looking at it right now.
It's amazing at what goes on when you see these 120 kids get together. They realize that they're not as different as they may have thought.
That's right.
They come from same circumstances. You put these kids out on the field, you teach them a little bit of baseball, But once again, it's not about big league baseball. It's about the teaching of life lessons and things like that you can learn on a baseball field. But you'll see kids that will look out after other kids, might not be as good a player, and somebody might be making fun of the kid for swinging and missing, and you'll see somebody step up and say, hey, it's not that easy. You know, and you'll see a kid take a leadership role and do some things that you wouldn't think of. And it's because of the environment that we're putting out there. All it takes is the right person. Let's bring one of our officers of the law in to the mix. And he says, hey, dude, that's not right. And then one kid will pick up on that, and then it goes right down the line. So it really is what you do out there on a baseball field, how you go about your business, same thing in life.
You know, you got me thinking. Things are so connected, or not, but in my head it is. As a student of leadership, you just made me think that was just an example of leadership. Stepping up. Someone doesn't even give you the big C to put on your jersey, which makes you the official what? Captain. No one even gives you the big C. Right. But you just gave an example of someone stepping up and saying, oh, wait a minute, that's our teammate. You don't make fun of them. I often ask people the biggest leadership lesson they've learned in life so far, in their professional life, or what's the biggest leadership lesson you've learned, whether in baseball or not so far?
Wow, there's so many. There really is. But
Pick one that sticks with you.
It's kind of funny, though, when you talked about the C. Did Derek Jeter actually have the C on his jersey?
Nope.
No.
Never.
Was there any doubt who the captain was?
Never.
Was there any doubt who the leader was?
Never.
He did things the right way on a baseball field. He did the right things off the baseball field. And when you look at that, look, I was an Oriole, the family was an Oriole, and things like that. New York to us sometimes was the evil empire. But I would always tell kids that are coming through our facility and our camps, did you watch how Derek Jeter played? Now, was he the best player the Yankees had all the time? Probably not. But there was no doubt who was in charge and who did the right things and how he went about his business and how he played. And I'll guarantee if someone said something about one of Derek Jeter's players or teammates, any given time he would say, no. He's one of us. If he's struggling, he's working on getting better, and we're going to stick by him. And that's an important lesson, how Derek Jeter ran to first base hard every single time, how he handled himself off the field. I mean, those are kind of players. There are players that you don't want to look at the big league level, and you can point them out. We don't need to do that.
No, we don't need
But
to.
There are certain players like a Derek Jeter that we can always point out.
Real quick, on the foundation, before I let you out of here. You guys doing something in Jersey City, in St. Anthony's?
We dealt with the high school, and us and United Water, the Cal Ripken Senior Foundation, donated $30,000 of sports equipment to those guys. We've been doing some Badges in Baseball program in Jersey City. We haven't built one of our youth development parks. We're putting up these parks where we have 37 of them to date. By the end of June, we will have over 50 youth development parks.
And we're talking all over the place.
We're talking about state-of-the-art facilities where this is what I'm talking about. If a kid has a choice to go left or right, and this facility's to the right, we hope he does that, because any given day, he could go left away from this facility and do something that he might regret for the rest of his life. And if we keep putting these things up all over the place, we got a chance.
All I know is Cal Ripken Sr. Taught you guys pretty well. So Bill Ripken, I want to thank you so much for joining us. And you are the co-founder of the Cal Ripken Senior Foundation. People can also see you on the MLB network. I want to thank you. You honor us and you honor your family.
Well, I appreciate your time. Let me get the message out.
Thanks, buddy. Stay
Thank
right
you,
there.
Steve.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Stay with us. We'll be right back. Really appreciate it.
To see more Caucus New Jersey with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at steveadubato.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato PhD, and follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
We welcome Mark Krasna, Dr. Mark Krasna, Medical Director, Meridian Cancer Care. Good to see you, Doctor.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Steve.
People don't like to talk about cancer, but we need to.
Absolutely.
Made some progress in the last 20 years, right?
We
Describe
have. Well, basically through what I'll call early detection and screening, we have changed the face of what we see for cancer. No one likes to hear about cancer. No one likes to think of the diagnosis of cancer. But if you imagine that you could find cancer when it's early or when it's advanced, through early detection and screening methods, we've really changed the fact that cancer in America mostly is now something that we're finding earlier, and therefore people could be treated with cure, and therefore people are living longer, despite the fact that they may have had the cancer. So that's the big news.
Let's talk about the areas where we've made the greatest progress with respect to early detection.
Sure. So the two that are the most important, because they're also the most common cancers, are breast cancer in women, prostate cancer in men. In women, we all know that mammograms, screening mammograms, which is a simple X-ray test that's done of the women each year to look at their breast, that has helped pick up tiny cancers to the point that most cancer centers across the country now in the United States are treating early stage breast cancer far more than they treat advanced stage breast cancer. So it's good news because we are picking up people who have the early cancers, but even better news, they can be cured when they're found, as opposed to people showing up only after they found something or only after it has spread, and obviously those patients have a lower chance of cure.
I want to talk about your area of expertise, which again is lung and
esophageal cancer.
Which is more challenging. We'll talk about that in a second.
It
But
is.
I debated saying this, but I told you, and you said I should say it on the air,
Sure.
so I will. I just had the it's colonoscopy. You got to do it. You know, you turn 50, then it's every 5 years, right?
Right.
And I told you I got thrown off when the doctor said, "Hey, we found this precancerous polyp," right?
Right.
And he said, "But it's good news because now we removed it, but now you're on a 3-year plan." I go, "Where's the good news?"
Right.
Explain
So
the good news, because you
is-
understood right away.
Absolutely, and I was happy as soon as you told me that. A, happy that you did what you're supposed to do. You had your screening colonoscopy, and B, even if they found something, they found a pre-malignant, a non-cancerous polyp. We know that the natural history of that polyp, if you leave it alone, it doesn't just grow, it can spread. And if somebody has an unknown cancer and the cancer spreads elsewhere in their body, unfortunately, the chance to cure some of that cancer is low. So now you're facing the discomfort of having to be, as your doctor called it, on the 3-year plan, every 3 years, have a colonoscopy to make sure there are no other polyps, because typically people who have a tendency may have another one. But even if they found one, God forbid, in 3 years or 6 years, as long as they keep finding precancerous polyps, your chance of, God forbid, having a
You've got to
cancer.
be advocating for yourself. And let's switch gears, though.
Yes.
Meaning, you understand what I'm saying. And I think
Absolutely.
people do as well. And don't avoid it. Nothing good
And you shouldn't
happens.
avoid it. You turn 50, it's something you absolutely have to
Let's
do.
switch gears.
Yep.
Your area. Because
Lung cancer, we've had the least progress, unfortunately.
Because?
Well, two things, unfortunately. Number one, think of it. Lung cancer is not the most sexy disease to talk about. There's still a stigma throughout the United States, but even across the world. Some people look at the patients as the victims, but they also look at them as, well, you did it to yourself because you smoked. And people need to get over that. They need to realize that the only person who was guilty there was a tobacco company that put nicotine in cigarettes that addicted people at an early age. They're the ones to blame. If someone picked it up and started, unfortunately, it's really hard to stop. So we need to stop thinking of the patient as, the person who was responsible.
But why is it so hard to treat?
Because we did not have any early detection for lung cancer for so many years. So for so many years, people would only show up after the tumor had presentation of symptoms, bleeding, coughing, or pain in the chest. You could guess that.
Late in the game.
Late in the game. And to remove those by surgery, like my specialty, or even to treat them with combinations, which have made great progress. Chemotherapy and radiation therapy and surgery for lung cancer, much better than it was 10 or 20 years ago, but nowhere near as good as if you would identify the cancer early on. So now we have a new technique,
Go ahead.
just approved this year by Medicare, just approved by the U.S. President's Task Force, and it identified that a lung cancer screening CT scan, like you had your screen, CAT scan, simple CAT scan. Nowadays, people know it takes literally 45 seconds to have a CAT scan. That CAT scan in the right patients, high-risk patients who either have emphysema or COPD, or patients with a history of smoking greater than 20 years, those patients are at higher risk. Even if they stop smoking, they're at higher risk. They should have a screening CT scan.
Doctor, help me understand something, because you're a big advocate of what are called nurse navigators, and cancer care with nurse navigators. A couple minutes left. Explain that, why it makes a difference if you, in fact, have the diagnosis of cancer.
So I'm a very strong proponent of what I'm going to call multidisciplinary cancer care. What does that mean, multidisciplinary? Again, take the typical cancer patient where it's a little bit more advanced. You have a medical oncologist who gives chemotherapy, a radiation oncologist who gives radiation therapy. You have a surgeon who resects the tumor, and then you have all these other doctors who help you diagnose it and stage it. So number one, you need everyone's opinion before you start therapy. That's key. You don't want to go someplace, have a treatment, and then find out by the next guy you see, well, that's okay, but I really would have done it different. It's too late. You want to know before you initiate treatment, what does my team of specialists think? What's the right thing for me?
You need a navigator.
And you need a navigator. Her job or his job is to get you through from place to place, from doctor to doctor, from team to team, and also to make sure at the end of the day, did you really understand what we said? Did you get it that you're going to have this test done and then this staging procedure, and then we're going to start you on your complex chemo and radiation, and I'm there for you at every step of the way. My patients, they can't pronounce a navigator either. They say, it's my go-to nurse. That's what they say. I want someone that I could go to whenever I have a problem. And they call the navigator for a social issue, for a problem with their insurance, and of course if their appointments were canceled because of a snowstorm. But the navigator is the glue that keeps the team together. That's really the key.
30 seconds, real quick. Greatest leadership lesson you've learned in the work that you've done in all these years is?
Listen to the patient and listen to your colleagues. The only way to succeed in something complex like cancer is to have a team. So all of us together can make a bigger difference. And you can't do it alone. No one person can be as successful than a strong team.
You love what you do.
I do.
And you make a difference every day.
Thank you.
Dr. Mark Krasna is the medical director of Meridian Cancer Care. Gave us a great update on the progress we're making in cancer and also told us that early detection is the key. Thank you so much, Doctor.
The preceding program has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence, and 13 for WNET, NJTV, and WHYY. Funding for this edition of Caucus New Jersey has been provided by the New Jersey Education Association, New Jersey Council of County Colleges, County College of Morris, United Water, QUALCARE, Inc., New Jersey Sharing Network, and by PNC Bank. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. Caucus New Jersey has been produced in partnership with TriStar Studios.
Hi, I'm Peter Rooney. In 2006, I lost my father to renal disease. He was on the waiting list for a new kidney, but did not receive one in time. Unfortunately, so many like my father have lost their lives while waiting for a life-saving organ. At New Jersey Sharing Network, we're committed to saving and enhancing people's lives through organ and tissue donation and by informing people about this important decision. Because you can make a difference and save a life.